So today, what we're doing, the steps, very similar to what we did yesterday and 2 days ago with the notes, and very similar to what we did last chapter. So a lot of these steps that we're going to use, you guys have used before. They might look a little different, but they're essentially the same types of steps. Okay, so the first thing, brand new thing, fundamental theorem of calculus, or fundamental theorem of algebra says the degree equals the number of zeros, roots, solutions, whatever you want to call them. So what this says is if I look at an equation like 1a, the degree is going to tell me how many answers I'm going to have. Okay? So if I look at 1a, what is the degree for 1a? Does anyone know what the degree for a is? The degree. What is the degree again? Greatest exponent, the highest exponent. All right? So what is the highest exponent for a? Or the biggest exponent? Or the largest exponent? 4. So this one says when I solve it, I should get 4 roots, or 4 answers, or 4 x-intercepts, or 4 zeros. That's how many answers I should end up with. Okay? How about B? How many answers should I end up with there? The highest exponent there is 3. So I should finish with 3 roots. Okay? That's going to help us today because we're going to solve. Well, how many answers am I going to get? We're going to be able to know that before we even start. Okay? On your last chapter, when we had solve, let's see if I can see you find a solve. Right? You guys are solving things like this, right? Solve. This guy had a exponent, or the degree was 2. So you got 2 answers, right? On the test you guys took, the most amount of answers you guys had was 2 boxes, right? Today we're going to have more. Some of them are going to have more, some of them are going to have the same, some of them are going to have, so it just depends, okay? So that tells us how many answers we have, or how many roots we have, okay? So these steps are nothing new. We've been using these steps. The only thing that's different from today was from last time we did notes a few days ago, and yesterday the assignment you guys did was the last step. But we've done that step before, right? Set the factor terms equal to 0 and then solve for x, separate and solve. We've done that before. Okay, so today's is actually a combination of what we've been doing. All right, so let's look at the first problem, number 2. Number 2, our first step is to decide which one it is. Is it a binomial or trinomial? Does it have 2 terms or 3 terms? What is this one gonna have? 2 terms, right? We don't count the 0, right? That's part of the step 1. We don't count it as a term, okay? So it has 2 terms, so it's a binomial, okay? So the steps say, set the equation equal to 0. Done, right? It needs to be in standard form. This guy's already in standard form. The highest power goes first, 2, and then nothing, right? Okay. Next step, GCF. And the leading term needs to be positive. So for this guy here, what is my GCF going to be? What's the biggest number that goes into 36 and 100? We'll start with that. 2 goes into both of them. I think there's a bigger number. 4. I think 4 is the highest. Okay. So I'm going to divide by 4. But I also need the first term. Instead of negative 36, I want it to be a positive number. So I'm going to divide by negative 4. That's going to be my GCF. Divide. Negative 4 divided by negative 36. Positive 9, right? I don't take away any powers of x because I didn't divide by x. Negative 4 goes into 100. Negative 25 times. That we've done that before. We've done GCS before, so that part's not necessarily new. Okay. So that's step 2 is done. Step 3 says difference of squares. So is that considered difference of squares? Are those two numbers on my list of perfect squares? Yeah, they are, right? And then there's an x squared and there's a minus. So all of those things are there. 9 is on my list. 25 is on my list. It's an x squared and there's a minus. So that means it's difference of squares. So what is this guy going to factor? It's going to factor into two things. There you go. 3x and a plus 5 and 3x and a minus 5, just like yesterday. We still have our GCF out in front. Right? Because 3 squared is 9. X squared is x squared. 5 squared is 25. And then 1's positive, 1's minus. Okay, so equals 0. That's where we stopped yesterday. We were done yesterday, put it in one box, we're done. Today we have to go to step 4 now because it says solve. Because it says solve, we have to go to the extra step. Okay? But we've used this step before. The step said set all your factored terms equal to 0. So I have 3 factored terms. I have the GCF. I have 3x plus 5. I have 3x minus 5. Okay, so I'm going to set them all equal to 0. So negative 4 equals 0. 3x plus 5 equals 0. 3x minus 5 equals 0. Okay. So let me start with the first one. Negative 4 equals 0. I can't solve for anything. It doesn't have an x, right? How do I solve for x if it doesn't have an x? So it's just a statement. It's a mathematical statement. Is negative 4 equal to 0? No, they're not the same number, right? So I don't even get an answer from this guy because it doesn't have an x. I can't solve for something that's not there. Okay, so that one doesn't offer me an answer. Let me go to the next one. Hey, come on. Oh, thank you. Okay. This guy has an x, so I can solve. Subtract 5 from both sides. Divide by 3. It's going to give me a fraction. It's okay. Fractions are okay. If you get a fraction, reduce it, and then leave it alone. Negative 5 over 3, I can't reduce that fraction. That fraction's done. So leave it alone. You're done with that one. So I get one answer there. Let me do it over here. Over here, luckily, it's very similar. But instead of plus 5, instead of subtracting 5 first, I got to add 5. X equals 5/3, positive 5/3. How many answers did I get here? 2. Go back to the very beginning. How many answers should I have gotten based off the degree? The biggest power was what? 2. And I got 2 answers, so I'm good. That's how you kind of check yourself. Get 2 answers. I was supposed to get 2 answers. Good. Okay. The first one didn't offer me an answer because there was no x. So I didn't get an answer over here. That's not considered an answer. That's just considered just an incorrect statement. Okay. Okay, so let's do number 2. Number 2 is also another binomial. Okay, so we're going to use the same steps. Okay, so solve algebraically. Algebraically just means use the steps. That's all it means. Okay, for all values of x. How many answers are we going to get here? 5. We're going to get 5 answers here. Okay, so a little bit different, but it's okay. We'll get them all. Okay, so GCF. GCF, it's already in standard form. It already is equal to 0. So the GCF, I can divide them both by -2. And how many powers of x can I take away from each? 3, right? I can take away 3 powers of x for each because they each have 3 to give away. 4 is too many. 2 is not enough. 3 is what they can give away. So that's my GCF. When I divide, -2 divided by -2 makes a 1. If I take away, if I'm dividing, I take away powers. So I take away 3 powers, I'm left with 2 powers. -8 divided by -2, +4. I take away all 3 powers, I don't have any powers left. Okay, GCF, done. So now my focus is right here. Is that difference of squares? No, it's not. Yeah, it's very, very close. But which part about it makes it not difference of squares? Yeah, the addition right there. It's supposed to, if that was a subtraction, you would say x plus 2, x minus 2. But because it's addition, it's not. So what do? We don't do that step. You can't do that step. We move to the next one, right? We move to the next step. The next step says set everything that I have factored equal to 0. So I have 2 things. I got the GCF, and then I have what's inside the parentheses. I'm going to set those both equal to 0. So -2x to the third equals 0. X squared plus 4 equals 0. So remember when we started off by saying we're going to have 5 answers? We are going to have 5 answers. How many answers does this guy over here going to give me? 3 answers. I'm going to get 3 answers from this guy, and I'm going to get 2 answers from this guy. That's going to be all 3 of them. Okay, so let's solve the one with 3. Divide by -2. So what this is saying now is x to the third. X to the third means something multiplied by itself 3 times. Same number multiplied 3 times. So if I what number, when I multiply 3 times, same number, makes 0 as an answer? 0 times 0 times 0 makes 0. 1 times 1 times 1 doesn't make 0. 2 times 2 times 2 doesn't make 0. The only thing that makes 0 when I multiply it 3 times is 0. Guess how many zeros I have? 3 of them. I actually have 3 zeros. There's actually 3 answers, and they're all 0. Now, on delta math, do you have to put 0 3 times? No. Delta math, you only need to put it once. If you have repeating answers, you just got to put them once. You can put 3 zeros. One box 0, next box 0, next box 0. That's okay, but you don't need to. It's not required. Okay, so the other guy. Need to subtract 4 from both sides. Since it wasn't difference of squares, I'm going to solve it this way. Okay, so I get x squared equals -4. How do I undo squared? Like, what's the opposite of squaring something? Taking the square root. Okay, so let me do that. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of -4. I've seen that before. Yeah, it's 2i. Here's the thing with it, though. Wasn't this guy supposed to give me 2 answers? Didn't we say this guy was going to give me 2 answers? It is going to give you 2 answers. Remember when we saw 2i, right? And it was always a plus or a minus, right? There's always plus and minus. That's where this comes from. So anytime you're finding the square root of something, one of them's going to be positive, one of them's going to be minus. So I actually have 2 answers. One of them's 2i, the other one's negative 2i. Because in the quadratic formula, there was a plus and minus, right? There was a plus minus before the square root. That's where it comes from. So anytime you're taking the square root of something, you're solving, and you take the square root of something, it's got 2 answers. One of them's going to be plus, one of them's going to be minus. Okay, so those are my other 2 answers. Okay. So in delta math, you could have 5 boxes: 0, 0, 0, 2i, negative 2i. Or you can just have 3: 0, 2i, negative 2i, right? These guys aren't the same. These guys are not the same. So you have to put each of them. Okay, one of them's positive, one of them's negative. Okay. All right. So now let's look at some trinomials now. Trinomials. We're more used to seeing these guys. We saw them last chapter. We saw them last period, yesterday, last set of notes. Okay. So it says solve. How many answers am I going to get for this guy? 3. 3 answers. Some of them might repeat themselves, like the last one did. Some they might not. Okay. Okay, so the first step says set it equal to 0. Done. Needs to be in standard form. Yeah, it's not in standard form. I have to move some things around. The negative x cubed needs to be in the front and shift everything else down 1. Everything keeps their signs because I'm not moving to the other side. The only time I need to change signs is when I move it to the other side of the equal sign. I'm not doing that today. I'm not doing that right now, I should say. Okay. Step 1 done. Oops, 14 needs a negative 14 needs an x. Okay. Next step, GCF. The term in front is right now is -1. Right now, the term in the front is -1. That can't be -1. So I know I need to divide by a -1 to make it positive. Okay. And then what else could I divide by? X. Yeah, they all have 1 x in common at least. So that's my GCF. So -1 divided by -1 makes 1. If I take away, when I'm dividing, I take away powers. So if I take away a power, I got 1x squared minus 9x plus 14. Okay. That was step 2, GCF, and leading term needs to be positive. Step 3, ABC. We've done this before many, many, many times. So now what's on the inside, I'm going to do ABC. Okay. So multiply to be 14, add to be -9. There you go, -7, -2. Okay. So I get x squared plus 14 minus 7x minus 2x. Okay. So this one has x squared. So this one is x times x, and then minus 7 and minus 2. Okay. So I have x minus 7, x minus 2 equals 0, and then my GCF. Can't forget about my GCF, negative 1x. Yesterday, that's where I stopped. On the Delta Math assignment yesterday, that's where I stopped. In the notes last time, this is where I stopped. Now the new step, because it says solve, that's what we're going to separate. So I have 3 factored terms. This guy, this guy, this guy. So I'm going to separate each of them and set them equal to 0. And you can probably do this one in your head. I don't mind that you doing it in your head. Do you have to write them out like that? No. Just don't forget to do it. Because I saw this on the test last time. Sometimes it said solve, and some people left it like that. That's factored, but it's not solved. Okay. Okay, so solve for x. Well, each of these guys I can solve for x because they each have an x. So I can divide by negative 1. I get 0 as an answer. Add 7. I get 7 as an answer. Add 2. I get 2 as an answer. How many answers at the beginning did I say I should have at the end? 3. And there they are. 0, 1 box. 7, second box. Third box, positive 2. Enter, enter, green check. Okay. All right. Okay, so I want you to try number 5 right now. Try number 5. We'll do it together, but I want to see if you guys, pretty sure you guys can do this one on your own. The trinomial, use the steps that we've been using. Okay. Okay, so I did step 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I had a GCF of negative 1x to the third because I needed to change the negative 3 to positive, and they each had at least 3 to give away. Then after I did that, I did ABC, factored. So total, I should get 5 answers. Total, I should get 5 answers here. Okay, so now the last step is to actually solve. So I'm going to solve, separate, set them both, all 3 equal to 0. Okay. The first one over here has got 3 of the answers. That one has 3 of the answers that I'm going to have. They're all going to be the same, and that answer is going to be 0, because 0 times 0 times 0 is the only thing that makes 0. Okay. Add 2 to both sides. Oops. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. X equals 2/3. Okay. And then the last one is add 4 to both sides, and you get positive 4. So total, I do get 5 answers. Just 3 of them are 0. 0, 0, 0, 2/3, x equals 4. Okay. Okay, so I want to do a couple 2 practice problems, but we're not going to do it in your notes. We haven't done white